Welcome to CEBSAR Talk. I am Evans Apia Kisi, the host of CEBSAR Talk. CEBSAR is Center for Better Society Advocacy and Research Africa. CEBSAR Africa is a non-profit organization that believes in a better society for all. We in CEBSAR Africa believe that a better society begins with you and I. Hashtag a better society begins with me. For more information, please log on to www.cebsarafrica.org. Follow us on the various social media platforms: YouTube, CEBSAR Talk, Facebook at CEBSAR Africa, Instagram, CEBSAR Africa, Twitter at CEBSAR Africa. Don't go away. Stay with us. Like always, we bring you another interesting, informative, and educative discussion on the topic: could artisanal and small-scale mining be the future of Ghana's mining sector? Artisanal small-scale mining, ASM, remains a valuable source of global mineral supply. In Ghana, most of the people engaged in artisanal small-scale mining do so for livelihood, and the sector could be a poverty alleviation tool in many communities in the country. Artisanal small-scale mining in Ghana remains largely unregulated, and many past governments had instituted military measures to criminalize their activities, mainly because of environmental pollution. These have resulted in police brutalities of small-scale artisans, shootings, burning of excavators belonging to the miners, death of a security officer, among others. Despite these command and control strategies, the miners continue to return to the various mine sites. Why do these small-scale artisans continue to return to their activities despite the human rights abuses? Could the sector then be harnessed as an alternative to poverty reduction in mining communities? In this episode of CEBSAR Talk, we unpack alternative measures to ensuring cleaner production in the artisanal small-scale mining sector. And to help us deal with this important topic are Dr. Ishmael Reku. He's a health and social policy researcher and a policy scientist. He's a policy analyst for the Ministry of Energy and Resources, Regina, Canada. He holds PhD in public policy from the Johnson Shoyama Graduate School of Public Policy, USASK, Canada. He holds MA in political science from the Brook University, Ontario, Canada. He holds BA in political science from the University of Ghana, Legon. His expertise lies in health and social policy, mineral land policy, and elections. It's obviously not new to CEBSAR Talk, and it's always a pleasure to host you. Welcome once again to CEBSAR Talk, Dr. Rekun.
Thank you, Evans, for having me.
It's a pleasure. And our next guest is our own Mr. Albert Kobina-Mensah. He's the CEO of CEBSAR Africa. He's currently a doctoral researcher at the Ruhr University, Bochum, Germany. He holds Master of Science in Water Resources from Kenyatta University, Nairobi, Kenya. He holds Bachelor of Science in Agricultural Sciences from University of Cape Coast, Ghana. His research focus lies in soil pollution, soil remediation, environmental sustainability, artisanal and small-scale mining sustainability. It's always a pleasure to host you. Welcome once again to CEBSAR Talk, Mr. Albert Kobina-Mensah.
Thank you so much, Evans. It's a pleasure being here again, and hello to my panelists and all the listeners listening to us across the globe.
Great. And our last guest for today is obviously new, and it's a great pleasure to host him. His name is Dr. Francis Xavier Tuoku. He's currently a postdoctoral fellow at York University, Toronto, Canada. He's authored and co-authored scientific papers on ASM and sustainability. He's also a reviewer for leading international journals. He's provided consultancy services for the government of Sierra Leone, the government of South Sudan, for Comfort Ghana, and Inter-Ally. He holds PhD in environmental studies from Antioch University, New Hampshire, the United States of America. He also holds MSc in Interdisciplinary Environmental Studies from Antioch University. He also holds MSc in Corporate Social Responsibility and Energy from the Robert Gordon University in Aberdeen, the United Kingdom, and holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Geography and Resource Development with Philosophy from the University of Ghana, Legon. It's a pleasure to have you here, and we say welcome to CEBSAR Talk, Dr. Tuoku.
Thanks all very much.
So thank you very much, gentlemen, and let me welcome you once again to CEBSAR Talk. And just to say that, as always, today also we are streaming live on Facebook at CEBSAR Africa, and it's also being shared on the wall of AK Mensa. So for those of you who follow AK Mensa, do that. I would also be sharing that. And for our fellow CEBSArians, we are grateful to you for your time always. And please keep your comments and questions coming as we discuss this important topic. I also would like to mention, before I come to you, gentlemen, that don't forget, CEBSArians, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our videos, and then comment as and when it is important. So we'll begin right away, gentlemen. We've seen that, and this is also, I must say that this is more of a follow-up to what we discussed last week when we unpacked whether mining indeed could serve, you know, as a tool to transforming the economy of most African nations. And today we want to focus on the artisanal small-scale mining sector. And I'd like to begin with you, Mr. Albert Kobina Mensah. And the question is that could artisanal small-scale mining become an alternative to the future of Ghana's mining sector? Especially because last week you made the argument that you think that the way to go as far as mining is concerned is to look at the small-scale miners. So the question we ask you, is it really the way to go? Is it really an alternative? And why do you say that?
Thank you so much, Evans, and hello to everybody joining us from across the globe. It's our major aim that we create a better society for Africans and for us in Ghana in all aspects. And mining plays a key role towards the economic development and transformation of Africa. And so we want to know if mining actually becomes a curse or a blessing. That was what we dealt with last week. But for us to harness the potentials of mining and to turn the curse around, then we need to put in place measures so that mining could benefit the people. And one of the key ways of transforming the mining sector is to look at the artisanal and the small-scale mining sector. Evans, permit me to do a bit of introduction about what artisanal and small-scale mining is, then I can narrow down to answer your question.
Do so, and if I could do this, and because my producer just alerted me, for those of you who are not aware, ASM is also what is popularly known as galamsey, and I'm sure you probably might touch on that, or you are the expert, so if you want to throw more light on that.
Yeah, actually, thank you so much. That is what I was going to do as part of my
all right, go ahead.
Message. So ASM, which is artisanal and small-scale mining, is a traditional system of mining, and it involves the use of simple technologies and rudimentary methods. So it involves the use of simple hand tools like shovels, cutlass, and pickers, and others, and others. So ASM actually occurs in over 80 countries, and there are two kinds, especially when it comes to Ghana. In other countries, there are various kinds. Like if you go to Zambia, they categorize into 3. If you go to other places like Botswana, they also categorize into other groups. But in Ghana, which our topic actually focuses on today, in Ghana, the ASM sector is categorized into 2. What is called the unlicensed, the unregistered, and the unregistered and the informal one, which is normally called the artisanal mining. So artisanal mining is galamsey. Okay, that is artisanal mining, that is galamsey. And galamsey means gather them and sell. Okay, and the other sector is the small scale mining sector. That is the registered one. So the galamsey is artisanal, it's not registered, and it's unlicensed. So the difference between small scale mining and artisanal small scale mining is in terms of licenses. So one is registered and has a license, and the other is unregistered and has no license. But then in terms of the operations, they are similar. Okay, one might not have been able to be distinguished between the two because their modes of operations are similar. So, and the main goal of artisanal small-scale mining is for survival and livelihood. And these small-scale artisans pay less attention or less regard for environmental regulations. So that is just the bit of the introduction. Evans, so if I go on to answer your question about whether the small-scale mining sector could be the future of Africa's mining sector, and especially in Ghana, I say, if you ask me, say an emphatic yes with no reservation. Why am I saying this? The ASM, or the artisanal small-scale mining sector, is the real mining meant for the people, for the indigenes. And you see, it dates back to the 4th century, okay? And it was the only mining type that was meant for production of diamond, okay? And this ASM sector actually was formalized as part of the economic recovery program that was done in the 1983 or in the 1989. Then because of that, it came up with what is called the small scale gold mining law, which is the PNDC law 218. So in the PNDC law 218, which is the small scale gold mining law of 1989, specifically mentions that the artisanal small scale mining sector is meant for the people of Ghana. I know we'll come to that. So that means that if you see any foreigner being involved in small scale mining, that is a breach of the legality of the process because it is meant for the people of Ghana. So, and then when the law was reviewed in 2006, which is the mineral and mining law of 2006, which is the Act 703, it also categorically stated that the small scale mining sector is meant for the people. So there is no better way to front for what is for you, for yourself. There's no better way than to front for what belongs to your people. So small scale mining sector is the actual mine for the indigenes. So the future of it, that means that if we could harness it well, then we could use it to transform, especially rural communities in Ghana. Then the small scale mining sector also provides physical revenues for investment in healthcare and education. We have done quite a number of work in the small scale mining sector. And we did a work in 2019. We got a paper published in 2019. And in that paper, actually, we found that, we'll talk about that later, but we found that the small scale mining accounted for about close to 40% of total gold production in the country. Then again, in 2016 alone, the small scale mining sector in Ghana contributed about $2 billion United States dollars into the Ghanaian economy. We don't want to lose that, because that is a lot of money. We can't let it go, because it holds 40% of the total gold production. That translates to about 40% of the total gold revenues in the country. So the future of it, if you could harness it well, it depends on that. Then I will go on. The small scale mining sector also provides catalysts for economic boost and growth in mining communities. Okay, when you go to mining communities where small scale mining sector is working, okay, you see increase in the local economy. Okay, we have increase in commercial activities. People purchasing power also goes up. Then you realize that other businesses like food vendors, hotels, retail shops are springing up, all because of the artisanal small scale mining happening in that particular community. Then again, why is it that it is the future of of Ghana's mining sector? Because it is not operated by enclave economies. Last week I told you what enclave economies are. Enclave economies are economies that require special skilled labor for you to be absorbed by that sector. But a small scale sector, it requires low skills. Okay, there's low entry barriers. Everybody can do it. Women, educated, non-educated, the illiterate, the old, children, young men, old men, all of them can get involved. Now, if you want to get into the mining sector, you think a woman can just get himself into the mining sector, especially the large-scale mining sector? He can't, because there are barriers, there are entry barriers. But the small-scale mining sector, everybody can get into it, regardless of your educational status, regardless of your class in the society, regardless of the skills that you possess, you can get into it. So it could be the future to reduce poverty and to turn around mining communities, especially in our beloved country, Ghana. Then again, the small-scale mining sector requires less capital. You know, the large-scale mining companies require sophisticated technology and huge investment for you to be able to operate a small-scale mining, a large-scale mining sector. And in fact, in Ghana, even the large-scale mining sector is meant for foreigners. Okay, and the small-scale mining sector is meant for the people in Ghana. So you cannot criminalize your own, because it is meant for us. You cannot criminalize your own and allow foreigners to come and operating on your land when you are actually criminalizing your own and trying to stop people from entering into it. So it also requires less capital. It requires less capital, and it's not capital intensive. And it also provides direct employment to local indigenes. Okay, at the moment, we talk about the small-scale mining sector providing employment to more than 150 million people worldwide. Okay, and in Ghana, it employs about 3 million, both in the large scale, both in the legal, which is the small scale, and the artisanal, which is the galamsey, which is the informal. 3 million. You do know how much the large scale mining, the number of jobs it provides, or employment provides, relatively around 20,000 to 65,000 jobs to Ghanaians. But this particular one provides about 3 million jobs to Ghanaians.
And if I may come in, I think you've said a lot, and thank you very much for the wonderful points that you've already highlighted regarding whether the artisanal small-scale mining could be the future of Ghana's mining sector. But I just wanted to ask a quick one. Last week you mentioned that usually this type of mining is for survival, which you explained brilliantly. Then my question is, if this indeed could be the future of Ghana's mining sector, is it really profitable? And then what do you say also to its impacts to the environment? Because it sounds to me that, is it really profitable? Let me just put my follow-up questions on these two things, if you could address it. What about those who also say that its consequences or its impact on the environment is, quite not the best in comparison to the large-scale mining?
That's a very brilliant question. In terms of it being profitable, of course it is. It is. But Evans, let me emphasize here, it is profitable. But the sole objective of people entering into small-scale mining sector is not because they want to make profit. The sole objective of small-scale mining sector is for survival and livelihood, which is dichotomized from the large-scale mining sector, which they come purposely to come and make profit. So we need to get this distinction very well. They come to make profit, especially for the large-scale mines. But the small-scale mines, an artisan can go out there, go and gather some stones and go and wash. He might end up getting gold, or might not get gold, even especially because of the extraction methodologies or the extraction technology that are used, which are not efficient. Okay, but then when the person goes and sell the gold. Okay, the main motive is for survival. That is why children can enter, women can enter, the old man can enter, the illiterate can enter, the non-illiterate can enter, and everybody, regardless of your status, you can enter into it. Okay, Evans, I'll come to your question on the environmental impact, but let me make this point to finish with why the small-scale mining sector. I'll come to your question.
Please do so in a minute or two because of our time. You've already spoken.
Then also, I must also emphasize here that the small-scale mining sector complement farmers' incomes in the local economy, and it could be a risk-averse mechanism for farmers. Okay, you can do your farming. Sometimes they get crop losses, poor harvest, and stuff. Okay, and they can complement their income with small-scale mining. Okay, and if you're a farmer, you can equally get into the small scale, and there are no entry barriers. Okay, Even to answer your question on the environmental impact, the environmental impact of small-scale mining is enormous. Okay, but I must emphasize here again that mining, regardless of its form or regardless of its scale, be they large or small, are or is environmentally damaging and not ecologically friendly. Mining, look, the large-scale mines, like last week I was telling you about, they cause something they call cyanide spillage, they cause about acid mine drainage, they mine and leave large plot of land, okay, abandoned and go scot-free. Small-scale mining sector especially comes with mercury pollution. That's one of the major environmental impacts associated with small-scale mining. It's mercury pollution. But then, just as we take measures to regulate the large scale and be able to cause them to return the land or to remediate the land or to take measures against environmental consequences, we can equally also put in place measures to cause the small-scale miners to also take measures against environmental pollution and to ensure responsible mining.
And then thank you very much. You probably would end it here so that when we get to the second round, we now look at what kind of policies or what kind of recommendations should we put in place to make sure that the small scale miners also do not pollute the environment and it's more sustainable. Thank you very much, Albert. And let me come to you, Dr. Rekun, perhaps with the same thing. Albert has already listed the number of reasons why ASM could become, an alternative to the future of Ghana's mining sector. What's your take on that also?
Evans, thank you, and thanks to Albert for such a wonderful introduction on the area of, small-scale mining. I know he's been working a lot in that area. Okay, I work a little bit during my master's degree level. And of course, both Albert and I have also been living in mining communities. So we have a history there. And I agree with him that small-scale mining has a significant contribution to make to Ghana's development, especially in mining communities. I mean, the number of small-scale miners in Ghana are absolutely, no doubt they are higher than large-scale miners, and there's a lot of, opportunities for people to enter and engage in small-scale mining. So we have a huge number of people in the small-scale mining sector. And also, especially when you talk about diamond, like Albert talked about 90%, okay, of production, diamond production in Ghana is actually based on what is produced by artisanal small-scale miners. Okay, so small-scale mining is a very important sector. And of course, it has a history. It has a strong tie with communities to the extent that, it's very difficult to do away with small-scale mining in Ghana, especially in mining communities. But one thing that I want to say, if we say we want to make small-scale mining, for instance, an alternative to, large-scale mining, I would say that we cannot continue the small-scale mining, the way it is being practiced. We have to make some changes in the sector to be able to ensure that, the mining activities by these actors goes on, checked and goes on, clean. We need to do that, otherwise it is not going to benefit the people. Albert talked about it, there are people going into small-scale mining for survival. To me, survival in itself means that it is not an opportunity for anybody to go into small-scale mining. Okay, because survival means that you are basically living at the baseline. Okay, it's like you are poor and you cannot actually get yourself out of that situation. You just have to live and survive. We need to have a more prosperous, workers. People should work and earn enough to be able to make their life worth living. And so to focus on small-scale mining the way we continue to do it, it's not going to lift people out of poverty. It's going to just let people, live at the bottom. They will have to have the basic life or condition of life in their society. this is not going to help. So we need to make sure that we modernize the activity of small scale. Another vice we see in small scale mining areas are social vices, you know. So crime rate is high, you know, prostitution, you know, and so even people do not go, some of the kids do not go into school because they have, I mean, small scale mining, which is galamsey, all over their communities, okay? And there's no need for any qualification to be able to engage in small scale mining. So if students, for instance, do not pay attention to school, I mean, going to school. So that also affects the, upward mobility, the potential to move higher in life. So that's another vice that we should look at. So I agree with Albert that small scale mining has a potential. The fact that we have a lot of people in small scale mining, it's a good thing, but we need to make sure that we improve upon the activities of small scale mining. Okay, look at it. Even though we have a chunk, about 3 million people are involved in small scale mining, as Albert said, they contribute only 40% of the production. With 20% of large scale, 20,000 people engaged in large scale mining, they are able to produce the remaining 60%. So what it means is that if we should rely on small scale miners, we would not be able to provide the adequate supply to meet global market demand. And if we are unable to meet global market demand, what is going to happen is that other countries are going to, to take the market, the remaining market share. Okay, now we are seeing technological advancement, okay, in the context of extracting minerals. And so the fact that you reduce your production does not necessarily mean that even prices will go up, because other countries will then increase production and they will be able to, dominate the market, and they'll be able to dictate prices for us. So that's why I don't want us to see small scale mining as an alternative, but rather as a complementary part where we develop small scale mining alongside large scale mining, so that we will be able to meet global market demand for gold or diamond or whatever, which are very critical for our national development.
But that's a good point out there. But just a quick follow up. Yes, you say that it should necessarily not be an alternative, but it should be in combination with the large scale mining. Especially, you made a very nice point, which Albert also said, that as it stands now, small scale mining perhaps is not an alternative until it is properly regulated, which we will come to that in the second round to find out from you here what measures we have to put in place to regulate it. But in combining this with the large scale mining, Albert already mentioned one major effect of this large negative effect, actually, the enclaved economy. You still want us to combine our small scale mining with this large scale mining, where we enter into enclaved economy, where they send all these profits back. What do you say to that also, if you think generally it's not the solution?
You know, this is a tricky one, because, you know, when we talk about small scale miners, the way they operate, there's a way they operate. Most of the time, even the production of small scale mining is sold to companies. You know, apart from the public company like the Precious Mineral Marketing Corporation, which buys gold from small scale miners, we also have private individuals and corporations which also buy from small scale miners. Okay, so what happens is that at the end of the day, all the gold that we produce by, small scale miners produce, are actually sold to these companies. Okay, some of them are foreigners, actually. It's not only the Ghanaian people who buy gold. It's also foreign companies are also involved. They also buy gold from these small scale miners. So they buy it at cheap price and then go and sell it at a higher price. Okay, so even when we talk about the profit, you see that the profit itself is not necessarily, internalized within the country. Okay, so private actors go into some of these. But apart from that, you see, last week we talked about how to improve upon the large scale mining process. Okay, so we have identified some gaps which enable private corporations to, repatriate their profits outside. Okay, but last we said that there should be some measures being put in place to be able to control the excesses of those ones. And once that is done, we can effectively benefit from large-scale mining operations at the same time as the small-scale mining operation. So focusing on just one will alienate us from the benefit we could have earned from the other side, which is the large-scale mining cooperatives, okay? Because they also contribute in terms of tax. They contribute in terms of tax to the country, we get royalties and so forth from the large-scale mining activities. So we cannot neglect them, but we can improve upon their activities so that we can benefit more than we do currently. And that will help benefit our economy.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Rekun. Well said. So I come to you, Dr. Tuoku. Perhaps maybe a minute or two already on what has been discussed. What's your take also? Do you think that small-scale mining is an alternative to the future of Ghana's mining sector? But then once you have a bite on it, I would like you to tackle this question for me also, because in the synopsis, we already highlighted that there's been different strategies adopted by past governments to make sure that they stop this galamsey, as Albert puts it nicely, gather and sell, which is the illegal mining. But we realize it's failed over the years. So what's your take first on whether it's the future of Ghana's mining sector and why various governments in the past have failed to, arrest the informality of the small-scale mining activities? Thank you.
Thank you very much. My colleagues have already exhausted most of the issues on the subject, but I would just like to add just a few. But before I do that, let me make a point of a correction. Albert mentioned that large-scale mining is, small-scale mining is reserved for Ghanaians and large-scale mining is reserved for foreigners. That is not entirely the case. He's right in saying that small-scale mining is reserved for Ghanaians, according to the law, PNC Law 218, which has been incorporated into the Minerals and Mining Act of 2006, Act 703 as amended in 2010 and 2015. But the correction is that large-scale mining is not reserved for foreigners. It is only that because of the capital, the huge capital requirement in going into large-scale mining, not many Ghanaians can afford that. And even the government of Ghana cannot afford that. That is why most of the mining companies, large-scale mining companies, are foreign companies. But the law doesn't state categorically that it is reserved for foreigners. I just want to make that point clear. The law doesn't say it is reserved for foreigners. It is just that because of the large capital required to go into large-scale mining, the government of Ghana cannot even afford that. That is why most of the operations of large-scale mining are done by foreigners. Now to your point, yes, it is indeed true that artisanal small-scale mining is a livelihood issue. There's the argument that most small-scale miners, are into it because they want to get rich quick. They want fast money. They want quick money. But that is not entirely the case. The data doesn't support that. Most people, like my colleagues have already said, are into small-scale mining, both legal and illegal, because of poverty. If you travel around mining communities, you see that most people are engaged in small-scale mining because of poverty. So it's a livelihood issue. It's a poverty issue. It is not because they want to get quick money. If you go to Takwa, the Takwa mining area, for instance, small-scale mining, the illegal aspect, for instance, galamsey, is the life and soul of the people. If you take small-scale mining from them, or if you take galamsey from them, you are basically killing them. And so most people are into it because of poverty. And note that these people see the land, they don't even regard that, or they don't even see that they're into galamsey activities because of because, and they don't see galamsey as an illegal activity because the land is theirs. So they own birthright to the land. Their forefathers have farmed on those lands. And so whatever they are doing on those lands, it's not illegal. So to criminalize their activities is to tell them that, they're not supposed to operate on the land, but the land is theirs. But the law also says that wherever a mineral is found, whether on your land, whether on the sea, that land or that property becomes the ownership of the state. And so it means that if a mineral is found on your farm, the land or the farm no longer belongs to you, it belongs to the government. And that is, but the people don't understand it that way. So they think that once they own birth rights to those lands, they have to do whatever they want on those lands. And so that's why some people are engaged in illegal mining, but they do that unknowingly, not that they intentionally, operate illegally. For them, they are operating legally because the land is theirs. So they own birthright to the ownership of those lands. Now, another point is that about 1/3 of Ghana's gold comes from the small-scale mining sector, and 85% of those operating the small-scale mining sector are operating illegally. So it tells you that if their operations are formalized, are legalized, and supported, it means they can contribute a lot. Because if they're operating illegally, if most of them, if about 85% are operating illegally, and out of this 1/3 of Ghana's gold comes from this sector, it means that they have a lot to contribute to Ghana's economy. If you talk to small-scale miners, they will tell you that whatever proceeds they get from their mines, stays in Ghana. But with the large-scale mining, whatever they get is moved out of the country. And mind you, government usually gives tax holidays to these large-scale mining companies. They don't do that to small-scale miners. So it means that if small-scale miners are supported the way the government is supporting the large-scale mining, they will have a lot to contribute. They will have a lot to derive from the small-scale mining sector. So it means that the sector has the potential to contribute to Ghana's development. It has the potential to employ so many people. The argument that there are social vices in mining communities and all of that, yes, that's true. And that some students don't go to school because of small-scale mining. That is true to some extent. But if you go to some of the communities, kids who are engaged in galamsey activities actually use money from those activities to pay school fees and to buy their educational needs. Now with free primary and senior high school education, that might not be the case. But of course, free education doesn't come with free school uniforms and books and all of that. So kids who are engaged in small-scale mining activities actually use money to buy their educational materials. So it is not entirely the case that kids stay away from schools because of small-scale mining. Another point worth mentioning is that because of the ban on small-scale mining, I did a study a few years ago, and I found that because of the ban on all small-scale mining related activities, starting from February 2017, criminal activities have shot up in some of the mining areas. For instance, Takwa. I did a study there, and I realized that because people had no jobs to do because they could no longer mine, whether legal or illegal. Government banned their activities until I think last year when those with license were asked to operate. Because their activities were banned, they had no work to do, and so criminal activities rather increased. Instead of the argument that criminal activities are usually high in galamsey or small-scale mining communities. Yeah, so it is true to some extent that criminal activities are high in mining areas generally, but the data, recent data, do not support that argument. Now, government policies over the years have failed because of the approach. I believe in stakeholder engagement, but the government over the years, have often approach the small-scale mining sector using military strategies and tactics, and those strategies have failed. Those strategies have failed because the small-scale miners themselves have not been involved in the decision-making process. And it has been established that when people are engaged, when people are involved in the decision-making process, they claim ownership of the policies that are designed. And once they claim ownership of the policies that are designed, they ensure their effective implementation. And so once you don't involve them in the decision-making, you don't expect that the implementation will be a success. And so that's one of the reasons why government policies and strategies have failed over the years. If you go to Tanzania and Zambia, for instance, we can learn best practices of small-scale mining from them. In fact, Tanzania, the government of Tanzania came to Ghana a few years ago to learn about small-scale mining. They went back and they were able to implement those strategies well, but we have failed to, to do that. So we can go to Tanzania and learn best practices from them. Zambia is also another country we can learn best practices from. And so for now, so the way forward is to formalize the activities of small-scale mining. So I support Dr. Reku's point that small-scale mining can complement the large-scale mining. So it shouldn't serve as an alternative, but it can run side by side with large-scale mining. In fact, I've always made the point that if you go to there was some mining enclave, for instance, about 70% of the lands there have been taken from the people and given to large-scale mining companies as concessions. And you and I know that most of our people are farmers. So if you have taken their land from them, what do you expect them to do? They have no choice than to engage in illegal mining. So that is actually one of the reasons why people are engaged in small-scale or illegal mining. It's because their lands have been taken away from them and they have no land to farm on. And so I have always made the point that, not all the concessions, not all parts of the concessions are used by the large-scale mining companies. So why don't they give part of their concessions to these small-scale miners so they can mine on? And then that way they can easily monitor them. If they are destroying the environment, they can easily monitor and then tell them to engage in good environmental practices. Because if you don't do that, then they'll have no choice than to engage in illegal activities. Moreover, the Minerals Commission, if you want to register a small-scale mining company, you have to go to Accra. So for instance, if someone in Takwa wants to register a small-scale mining, the person will have to travel all the way to Accra. Where will the person get accommodation in Accra? Where will the person, how will the person transport himself to Accra? All those bureaucratic bottlenecks, have made it difficult for, people to register small-scale mining operations. And that's why most of them are engaged in the informal sector, which is the galamsey we are talking about. And so the best way is to...
We will come to the, sorry to cut you in, we would definitely come to the second round. We will look at the actions that can be taken to be able to address this problem. But thank you also very much, Dr. Tuoku, for that brilliant submission out there. There's something that you said, which I want to repeat and then ask all of you in a minute or two your comments. So you say that usually the indigenes do not see their activities as illegal because they believe that this is their land and they have found gold on the land, but the law does not say so. The law also says once you find gold, you need to report it, or it belongs to the government of Ghana now.
Yes. Yes.
So, but what do you say to this? Because I guess this is also something that has not, I don't know, perhaps has not been emphasized a lot because like they say, ignorance of the law is no excuse. So how do we go about just this problem of a lot of people who still do not see their operations as illegal, yet in the law, it is illegal?
Yes, so that is a lack of consensus building, lack of engagement. The government should engage them, but it is lacking. The Minerals and Mining Act of 2006, Act 703, as amended in 2010 and 2015, says that wherever a mineral is found, it belongs to the president, and the president holds that in trust for the people of Ghana. So it means it belongs to the state, but the people don't understand it that way. they think that once they've been farming on their land for years, it is theirs. But the law also says that these people must be compensated. But in most cases, they are given little or no compensation at all.
Okay.
And so, and sometimes they are moved. They are resettled in other on other lands. And most at times, those lands are not very productive. They are not fertile. And so once they are not fertile and not productive, what do? They have no choice. They have no choice than to engage in illegal mining activities. And like I said earlier, they also claim birthrights to the ownership of those lands. But the government, when the government gives the land to the mining companies claim mineral rights to the ownership of the same lands. And so that's why there are always tensions existing between, small-scale miners and large-scale mining operators.
Yeah.
Yes, because of tensions that exist between or in terms of birthright to the ownership of lands and mineral rights to the ownership of those same lands.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Tuoku. And if you are joining us for the first time, this is CEBSAR Talk. And today we are discussing the topic whether small-scale, whether artisanal and small-scale mining could be the future of Ghana's mining sector. My guests have been Dr. Ishmael Rekun, Dr. Francis Xavier Tuoku, and Mr. Albert Kobina Mensah. Maybe I should read a few comments, and then I ask Albert and Dr. Rekun to have a 2-minute bite before we enter into the second round. So this here from Houston Emmanuel, he was a guest on the show last week. He says that I disagree with Albert that artisanal mining is the future of Ghana, especially so when they are not controlled by state agencies responsible for the environment. And indeed, when political apparatchiks are involved and don't account for the money they derived from, it's simply because their government is in power. Where is the money that I guess what Emmanuel is saying is exactly what Albert is saying, that the sector should be looked at, it should be regulated properly. And then we have Aminus Havamikus. He's a solid panel and looking forward for an insightful discussion. John Kojo Amo said, myself, Dr. Ishmael, and Albert have stayed in a mining community before. There is no way you can stop the indigenous people in such an area from doing galamsey. That is their survival trend. If there is a modernized way of gold extraction, then the very first people to be taught should be these people. They should be provided with adequate education and information so that they can conform to environmental regulations. Yeah, so
that is a solid point. Not to cut you, that is a very solid point, and
true.
That is very true. There's no way you can. I always say that there's no way we can stop galamsey, and studies I've done in the field confirm that we cannot stop galamsey. There's no way the government can stop galamsey. It is how do we support them? That should be the way forward.
Exactly. So then you ended on a very good note, which prepares the ground for the second round. We can't stop galamsey, and I think we've all agreed, and we've also all agreed here that it should be done in combination with the large-scale mining. Last week, Albert, I'll come to you. Last week we did talk about a few of the strategies to address that. So if we can't, what is the way forward? How do we deal with it? I wanted to start with Dr. Rekun, but I think Albert wanted to say something. Albert, go ahead.
Evans, thank you so much. I want to make a few rebuttals and additions. Dr. Rekun was talking about the socio-environmental impact of small-scale mining. I must say here, those impacts that Dr. Rekun mentioned are not associated with small scale. They are associated with mining, whether it is small scale or large scale. That is, those are consequences associated with mining, and that is why mining has resource scarce. So that is something, and all those consequences that he was talking about, the large scale mining companies also cause equal consequences. But all these things could be regulated. All these things, like Dr. Tuoku mentioned, okay, the law is biased against small scale mining. okay, and favors the large-scale mining. Look, I had reviewed works on small-scale mining policies and mining policies in Ghana, and we found that, I mean, more than 30 or more than 40 mining policies that I've reviewed. Okay, more than only about 11 or to 14 cover the small scale. Okay, so the law is done to actually promote the large scale and to criminalize the small scale, which should not be the case. You cannot criminalize your own, then allow foreigners to come and till your land. If I ask you, do you have something like illegal farming?
But don't forget also that, I mean, like Dr. Tuoku also corrected that it is not as if that large-scale mining is reserved for only foreigners. It's just
I know. I agree with that.
So I guess we can't say that we are criminalizing our own and allow. It's just the fact that usually it's capital intensive and the locals are not able to raise that amount. So I think the law is fair.
I agree with that.
It's fair on this note.
I agree with that. But the Ghanaian law, I agree with Dr. Tuoku, Francis, but the Ghanaian law states emphatically clear that the small-scale mining sector is meant for the people of Ghana.
Yes, that's true.
That's what the law says.
Exactly. So what it means is that it's rather fair to the people of Ghana because we can engage in the large-scale mining and only engage in the small-scale mining.
I think let me come in here.
Cutting me, and sorry. I'm not able to actually present the point that I want to present.
Because I think this point has been made, and I wanted us to
it's because I wanted to make a clarification here. The small-scale mining sector is reserved solely for the people of Ghana.
No doubt about that.
Yes. So when you see a foreigner involved in the small-scale mining sector, that is a breach of the legality of the process. So my point here is that why then do you criminalize what is meant for your own people, but then you allow foreigners? You know, when you go to mining communities like Dr. Francis talked about, the people have this. One of the ways why we can never stop small scale. Look, we can put in all the military strategies and whatever, put it on this record. It can never stop small scale mining. Okay, small scale. Do you have something like small scale, or do you have something like illegal farming? Do you have illegal farming? But illegal farming is equivalent to small scale, you know, because artisanal mining, because it's just a matter of picking up your tools and going to, okay? But a farmer can pick up his or her tools to go and dig. But a miner who has natural entitlement to the land in his own place, sits down and he's going hungry, and he or she picks up his or her tool to go and dig for gold, you say it is illegal. That is why people in mining communities are saying that it is better to die looking for gold than to sit and die out of hunger.
Anyway, I think that on this note, let's start with the second round. Yes, we can never stop illegal mining or galamsey. So what's the way forward? What socio-environmental measures could then be put in place to achieve cleaner production and mining sustainability in Ghana? And I would like to begin with you, Dr. Reko. Let's look at the government. I know last week you already highlighted a few ways with which this could be done, particularly in shaping the large-scale mining sector. What's your take also? What do you expect the government to be doing in terms of policies and regulations so that we are able to place this small-scale mining in a very sustainable way? Thank you.
Yeah, Evans, thank you. Thanks for the question. But no, I also want to comment a little bit about.
Go ahead.
Just so we clarify some of these things. I've been in a mining community, and I totally support the fact that we can never end small-scale mining. There have been a series of attempts to end it. It hasn't been successful.
True.
Okay. Even by the colonial government, it didn't work because of the nature of their operation. You can never end them. They will go into into the bush and then still do their small-scale mining. And like any other policy, even tax, there are tax evasion. Once we still have tax evaders, we will continue to have people who will still be engaged in small-scale mining. But when I talk about the environmental and social values of mining, I'm not saying that it is just the small-scale mining which causes some of these issues. But as we did last week we talked about the vices of the large-scale mining activities. We cannot say that the large-scale mining companies are evil and the small-scale miners are saints. And so when they are causing environmental disaster, we shouldn't talk about them because we support their activities. I believe that we can do small-scale mining in a cleaner way. So in as much as we talk about the bad consequences of large-scale mining, we should also acknowledge that small-scale mining has some negative effects. That should be addressed. If we don't look at it in that way, I mean, we are going to cause a problem in the mining community because some of the people in the mining communities do not actually see the benefit of some of these things that we talk about. So we should acknowledge the vices of small-scale mining in as much as we do for large-scale mining. I think that is the way I want to look at the issue we are discussing today. Okay, so then let's go back to your question, okay, about what government can do to make sure that, I mean, small-scale mining is done in a more sustainable and environmentally friendly way. I would say that, you know, of course, we have been trying this, but one important thing we need to do is formalization of the small-scale mining process. You know, you asked that question as to why the local community sees small-scale mining as a good thing, but not, I mean, the law, okay? But the laws actually do not look at it that way. And the reason is because of the incomplete formalization of our political system. I would say the political system because it is not just in mining, okay? Because when you look at it, we all evolved from a traditional society with our norms, values, and customs, okay? So that way in Ghana, people come to own lands according to what? To community, according to the family you are part of, okay? So we have that communal system. At the same time, when we came into colonialism and decolonized after colonialism, we have seen that we have introduced law which actually vests mineral rights in the hands of the government. So this dichotomy where we have the traditional society being run by chiefs, okay, with traditional ownership of mineral or lands, and then the government also owning the mineral right itself has been a very controversial and sometimes conflicting issue. And people do not really understand, I mean, the issue. Because of that, when you go to the local communities, there is a huge support for galamsey. Okay, that I mean the illegal mining process. And then yet the law frown on galamsey. Okay, so until we have completely formalized our mining process and our various systems in our society, I mean, we will continue to have this problem where formalization is going to be very difficult because of the different perspective communities have versus that of government. Okay, so we have to address that. The formalization process, I mean, according to existing literature and studies, shows that the formalization process has not been very effective. It has not been very effective because of the complicated and costly process. Okay, that, I mean, I think Francis talked about some of these things. The complicated and costly and even burdensome processes small-scale miners will have to go through in order to register their operations. Okay, so we have to deal with that. For me, I would propose that, you know, government can, I mean, apart from decentralization, government can make it free for small-scale miners to register. I don't know how much, I mean, government is going to earn from this registration process compared to the environmental consequences. You know, sometimes I see that we run a society, and the society that is a systemic, very interconnected system. If you do not formalize them or you make it easier for these small-scale artists to register their operations, they are going to operate illegally. And their mode of operation, you can never regulate. You know, in public policy, one thing is that there is one thing having a policy and another thing enforcing the policy. Okay, so when you make the policy without looking at the way you can enforce the policy, you are likely to create a policy which will never be enforced. Okay, because under what circumstance can you even send military men to small-scale mining lands in order to monitor these people? I mean, ensure that they don't even engage in small-scale mining or galamsey. So you can never do that. It is costly to send military men out there. It is costly, and you can't even monitor the activity to the point that we have seen some of these guys colluding with the local communities and miners, and then they are never enforcing the law that they are supposed to enforce. Okay, so I mean, the enforcement itself will be very difficult if we don't make it easier for these companies, these actors to register their activity. Government can make it free. It will not cost government much. But when these actors operate illegally and they cause environmental pollution and they destroy the forest, they destroy agricultural lands, government is still going to suffer and will have to, I mean, give back to support these activities. So instead of allowing these actors to operate illegally and destroy the environment at a huge cost, why don't you make it even free for these actors to register? That way, you can regulate the activity, because registration is very important for you to be able to regulate the activities of these actors. Okay, so I'm advocating that government should make the registration process free. In addition to what Francis said, decentralize the process so that, I mean, people do not have to bear a huge cost. You know, in economics, there's something called transaction cost. When the transaction cost is high, okay, people have this incentive to engage in the activity, okay, because the cost of registration, cost of traveling from one place to the other, cost of filling these papers, especially the application form. With the fact that some of these actors are illiterate, it is even going to have additional cost burden on these actors. When the transaction cost of the process is high, actors will not venture into that activity. And so we should try as much as possible to reduce the transaction cost. In addition to decentralization, also, I'm advocating for self-regulation. I'm advocating for self-regulation. There are two types of regulation. Government can decide to regulate small-scale miners. Government can also charge small-scale miners to regulate themselves. Okay, and it has been done when it comes to medicine. Okay, we see it all across. Okay, we have Association of Medical Practitioners, Medical and Nurses Council, even Legal Council of Ghana. They are lawyers regulating themselves. Okay, in public policy, any activity which cannot be effectively monitored, okay, by government should be self-regulated. Leave that out to the operators to regulate themselves. Okay, they can form association leaders so that government will hold the leaders and the associations accountable for whatever excesses come out of small-scale mining. Okay, so I'm advocating that government should deregulate the process and allow small-scale miners to regulate themselves. When they do so, there's this problem of collective action, because you can't even observe the operations. They are working in the far bush, but the local communities and the small-scale miners knows where they live and where they operate. If you allow them to self-regulate, they will be able to, I mean, manage the situation, and it will be in the benefit of the country at the end of the day. So, I mean, in addition to decentralization, I'm calling for self-regulation. We should also make the process, I mean, even free for people to register. But we should also talk about law enforcement.
Okay.
Okay, law enforcement is very important. Okay, and we have the police, the security men, and EPA, and all those. I think they are not being proactive. Okay, they are not being proactive. And the fact that some of these actors rather collude with these small-scale miners itself is a problem, and we have to deal with that. But I think government they are not able to do so because of what? Of poor support government provides to these actors. Okay, the budgetary support to some of these actors are very small, given the scope of their operation. If you want EPA to monitor activity of small-scale miners, it's very expensive, and government cannot afford it. That's why self-regulation will actually address this issue, especially if government cannot do that monitoring itself. So, I mean, Evan, these are some of the things I believe that government could do in order to enhance the activity of small-scale mining operations in Ghana?
Thank you very much, Dr. Rakun. Just a quick 2 follow-up questions. So yes, you talked about formalizing, decentralizing, which was also touched on by Dr. Tuoku. But when you say they should relax the bureaucratic process involved in the registration process, I think I get it very well. But when you say the registration should be free, then are we not saying everybody should go ahead and be doing the small scale mining? I mean,
Evans, small mining is not a bad thing. Okay.
But if we have to regulate it like we are all advocating for, why should the registration be free? Wouldn't it then make it too easy for everybody to engage in it?
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that small scale mining is a good thing. If you have a lot of people in small scale mining, it's not bad. Okay. The problem we are actually talking about is the excesses of small scale mining. That's why you need regulation. Okay. If you want to regulate these actors, you need to bring them into the formal sector. You cannot regulate the informal sector. You know, you cannot. So you have to regulate, you have to make sure they come into the formal sector. To bring them in, you have to create incentive. You know, I didn't even talk about this, but there's this perception. Anytime you are trying to formalize, the perception of taxation. People think that once I register, government is going to be able to tax me, my activities. And so, I mean, it's a problem across the world that if you want to be taxed, then formalize. So to create the incentive so that people will register their operations, so that you know where they are operating, you know how much, I mean, how many people they are working with, you know, to be able to know how they are affecting the environment and so. You need to bring all these people in the informal sector into the formal sector. And you cannot do so if you don't make it attractive. Okay. So the reason why I'm calling for free regulation is that you create the incentive for small scale miners. Okay, many of them are actually surviving, we talk about, to come into the formal stream, to come and register their activities. Okay, until we introduce that kind of incentive, if the fear of taxation and other costs involved in registration and others will make it, I mean, will disincentivize these actors from registering. Okay, so you have the law says, oh, register, but you never have even one person register. Okay, and all so right. The freer regulation will allow for them to come into the
Thank you very much for bringing clarity to that. But just one quick one, and maybe just do that quickly for me. You also talked about self-regulation, which I think it's very much in order, even though you brought in collective action problem. But I just wanted to find out, at the moment, don't we have any small-scale mining association council in place where they do some of these things, but still we are not seeing a sustainable mining? I probably should be careful on that, but anyway.
No, I think you are right. We have small-scale mining associations. But when we talk about self-regulation, it's different from having association. You know, I mean, you can have student association in a university. It doesn't really mean that you are in charge of regulating the activities of students. Okay, probably it's an interest group. Most of these associations are interest groups, which actually intercede on behalf of their members. Okay, when it comes to, and so we have the difference between interest group and regulatory authorities. Okay, so regulatory authority making small-scale miners, I mean, to regulate themselves, it means that you are vesting them with the power, even the legal regime that authorizes them to control the activities of small-scale miners. And that is what I'm advocating as self-regulation.
All right. So I get it now. So that they, like power of attorney, they give the small-scale mining council or association some power to regulate it, so that when things go wrong, government could hold these people responsible. Sure. Thank you very much, Dr. Rakun. So I was going to come to you, Albert, and I wanted you to look at the measures that could be put in place by the small-scale mining companies themselves. I think perhaps part of it has already been mentioned, when they are able to self-regulate themselves. But before that, we have Edmond on the line who wanted to ask a question. So Edmond, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm on the line. I can hear you.
So please go ahead with your question.
I don't know, maybe my question will be tackled along the line, but I've listened thus far and I've not heard practically how we can deal with the environmental issue, because I want to give some context. What really caused the outcry in Ghana for the ban on small-scale mining or illegal mining was the sheer destruction to the environment. And as a climate scientist, I cannot think about how best we can deal with this problem. And this is not what I've seen you guys touch on. So yes, small-scale mining can be regulated to be the future, but how concretely that we wouldn't see what we saw in years ago that really made every Ghanaian cry and say, end with this? That's my question.
All right, thank you very much. And well, I'm sure that Albert and Dr. Tuku will touch on it. And maybe later I would also give Dr. Rekun the opportunity to do so. But I'm pretty much sure that regulating it is also one way of reducing this huge environmental impact. And so the points that Ishmael has already highlighted on, all of these, when done properly, could reduce some of the impact. So Albert, what's the way forward for small-scale mining companies?
Yeah, thank you. I think that was a brilliant question from Edmond. But the issue is that those are the things that we want to talk about.
Exactly.
And the small-scale mining sector had been reviled greatly because of its environmental devastation. Okay, but what we've done for this session had actually preceded with more of the socio-economic contributions. Okay, but bearing in mind that I'm also aware of the environmental consequences the small-scale mining operation actually does cause to the environment. And as an environmental enthusiast, I cannot advocate that small-scale mining should go ahead and cause environmental destruction to the environment or cause environmental degradation. Never, because I am a soil remediation scientist. Okay, so I think numerous things have been said that I wish I could provide some rebuttals. Few one, please permit me.
You do all that within your time anyway.
Yeah, few. Like Dr. Francis said, small-scale mining can never stop, but we can put in place measures to regulate their activity.
That's the discussion we are having.
Yes, that is why we had called for always the need to formalize the small-scale mining sector. What we are doing, the purpose of this is to cause a change to trigger the formalization process of the small-scale mining sector. I must emphasize here that, in fact, despite everything, Ghana is one of the few countries actually in Africa and even in the world who is doing extremely well in the small-scale mining sector regulation and formalization. We've come very far. Ghana has come very far with policies and many stuffs, okay? So we are not being, and in fact, when we talk about tax exemptions, we talk about royalties, the small-scale mining law actually talk about some of these things where they give royalties free, they give tax incentives and no payment of royalties from the small-scale mining sector is part of the processes. And as part of the recommendations, Dr. Reku also said, where Francis also made mention of, where there are bureaucratic steps or processes in registering small-scale mines, where miners will have to travel all the way from their various places or various mining communities into Accra, and because lack of decentralization. I think we have made some strides on that, where now they have devolved offices for small-scale mining offices to various mining communities. Okay, and even the precious mineral and marketing board, okay, which is meant to actually buy gold to officiate the marketing of gold in the country. I think Ghana had also set up some marketing. I think one is in Bolgatanga and other places. So in terms of devolution, they are doing it. Okay, but as to the effectiveness of the devolution, okay, like I said, now they've devolved the small-scale mining sectors with the regulatory frameworks, especially institutions, to the lowest level. Like now, you don't need to travel all the way from Accra, from your place to Accra to go and register. That's what the Constitution, that's what the acts and the various mining policies have stipulated. Okay, but as to, you know, one doctor taught me that there's something we call devolution and there's something we call deconcentration. Okay, in deconcentration, what happens is that we tend to deconcentrate, but in Ghana, you can have something about devolution or decentralization, but then you will still have to, it still looks like there's no decentralization. Okay, so I think that measures should be put in place to make sure that these various institutions are empowered at the lowest level to carry out registration of small-scale mines, and that they don't need to exist only in papers, or they don't need to exist only in books. Okay, that if you want to register small-scale mine, you can register it in Takwa if you are in Takwa, but then you still have to go or get some printing stuff from Accra. This thing should be, I think, it should be taken care of. Then there's no time, so let me just tackle my question as to what the mining companies, the small-scale mining companies can do. Okay, I will tackle it from the point of project life cycle. Okay, if you read about environmental sustainability concept, and I know Francis knows more about that. Environmental sustainability concept, with regards to the use of, with regards to mineral resources, are different. Okay, they are different because mineral resources are non-renewable. And because they are non-renewable, it means that you deplete the environment today, or you deplete the resources today, and the future generation will not meet it. Therefore, sustainability concepts as applied to non-renewable resources are different from renewable resources. Now, in terms of non-renewable resources like mineral mining, okay, Hemanda in 1990 proposes 3 criteria in order to meet sustainability of a non-renewable resource. But I will concentrate on the 3rd criteria. The 3rd criteria for 3 criteria for achieving sustainability. The 3rd criteria is that the depletion of the non-renewable resource should require comparable development of renewable substitute for that resource. Okay, which means that we need to take measures to protect the environment, to help the people, and also to achieve economic proficiency. That is why we have 3 pillars of sustainability. Okay, we have the economic, which has to do with profit. That is why we also have the environment, where the mining companies, especially the small-scale mining companies, will have to take measures to protect the environment, and they also have to take measures to protect the community, which is the social sustainability aspect. Now I come to the project life cycle, where I'm going to give a holistic way the mining companies, the small-scale mining. I'm one of the #1 advocates of a formalized small-scale mining, but then I think that things should be done right to harness the potentials of it and to serve as a poverty alleviation tool in mining communities. If you talk about the project life cycle, we talk about the 4 phases of project life cycle. We talk about the initiation phase, or the pre-construction phase. We talk about the construction phase. We talk about the operation phase. They also talk about the closure, or the decommissioning phase. Now I will proceed to recommend some steps the small-scale mining companies can take from the beginning of the project to the last phase of the project. And from the beginning of the project, I'll be brief. There should be plans, okay, for closure of the undertaking. Okay, there should be various measures for mitigation in terms of management of tailings, okay, management of waste. Okay, and last week I told you about tailing. You know, tailing is one of the major byproducts from small-scale mining. And these tailings are being stockpiled. I'll talk about some of the ways to manage some of this in terms of environmental management. So there should be measures for that. There should be reclamation plans, okay, especially at the initiation or the pre-construction phase of the project life cycle. Then when it comes to the project, the construction phase itself, the small-scale miners, okay, should put in place measures to avoid or manage hazardous waste or materials. And how can they do this? They can do something called a padding. Okay, padding is a process whereby you put something to insulate the earth surface, okay, so that the toxic materials do not easily run off. Okay, so this measure should be put during the construction phase of the project life cycle of a small-scale mine. There should also fence tailings. Okay, there are tailings that are being generated as a result of small-scale mining should be fenced. Okay, There should be fence. They should also put in place measures to manage the tailings, okay, by planting grasses, okay, around the tailings to stop erosion and to reduce erosion into catchment areas, into groundwater and into the surface water, okay. Then they should also take in steps to manage the health and safety of the mine workers, which is very important because most often they go underground and they go and die. Okay, this thing should be. Then I talk of waste measures to address erosion. Then they should construct tailings, which I've talked about. Then there should be storage sites for stockpile soils. Okay, when you talk about stockpile soils, soil that have been accumulated, okay, or waste that have been accumulated from the activities, okay, they should design a place to store this because all these things actually run water or run contaminated soil or water or effluent into the environment. Then also there should be protection of sacred places like graveyards, okay, national parks, ancient temples, and all that should be protected. And I think all these things can be done if they are properly regulated. These measures that I'm spelling out here could be, small scale miners could be caused to make sure that they do it. And they can do it just like the mining companies or the big scale mining companies do. They can also do it. But I'm calling for a formalized small scale mining sector. That is why the things we are talking about here are not so informal. We are talking about standards of doing things and getting the best benefit for the people and to grow the economy. And then we come to the last but one phase of the project life cycle, the operation itself. Okay, the operation itself, of course, the EPA should cause them to submit environmental management plans and environmental action plans, okay, that they would like to put in place to manage their activities, okay. Then the small scale miners should be caused to also develop alternative livelihood programs. This is in line with social sustainability, okay. And I know some small scale mining companies do this, okay, roads, schools, water infrastructure, training and education, hospitals, okay, recreational parks for children. Some small scale mining companies do this. Then there's something we call concurrent rehabilitation. I think this also addresses Edmond's question, okay. Concurrent rehabilitation is where you reclaim as you mine, okay, you reclaim as you mine. It's called concurrent rehabilitation. You don't only wait till at the end of the closure or the closure phase of the project life cycle, but they should be taught, and like schools like School of Mines or University of Mines and Technology have mining engineers, and these small scale miners could be taught about some of these things to ensure responsible mining and to achieve socio-environmental sustainability in the sector. Then also,
and please do that in a minute for me.
Okay. Then they should also be caused to provide environmental performance reporting, rating, and disclosure. EPA does that for the large-scale mining companies with ACOBEN, where they give star from yellow. Yellow is the best, or which is the gold. Okay, blue, red is for danger. Okay, then they have green. Okay, all they do it to rate the big-scale mining companies in terms to commensurate with the measure they are putting in place to achieve socio-environmental sustainability. Okay, so this particular method that I'm talking about, that environmental performance rating and disclosure, should equally be applied to the small scale. And we are helping our people, okay, to benefit themselves, to get money for themselves, to get them out of poverty. Then whilst we are also taking steps to manage the environment for the future generation. And there's no better way we can do that than to support our own.
Thank you.
And my last point I would like to make at the end when they finish with the mining, the closure phase of the project life cycle, okay, they can also reclaim the site. I don't want to go into the details of reclamation, but then they can use root vegetation, they can plant grasses. I know my friend Bansa had done some work where he talked about local plants that can be used to clean up the contaminated site. There are local plants like a champon, Chromolena odrata, okay, Lucina. Myself, I did some work with Lucina, okay, and most leguminous plants could be planted on this contaminated site to reclaim the field and to clean the area of the contaminant, to address erosion, to restore fertility of the soil, and to be able to also bring back the land to the level where it was taken. And in cases where we cannot do that, we cannot reclaim the site for further use, we can also reclaim it for recreational purpose or it can be claimed for tourism. Okay, it can be claimed for tourism. It can be claimed for tourism. It can also be reclaimed for as site where children can also use them again. Okay, so these are some of the measures that I would like to put in place to be able to manage holistically the small scale mining sector in a formalized way to benefit the small scale miners, to lift them out of poverty, and to transform mining communities into great places where people can go and say, this is where gold is mined.
Thank you very much, Mr. Albert Kobina-Mensah. That's a lot of takeaway there. So you mentioned a whole lot of things. Just one very quick follow-up, and we don't have time. I would have loved that you go into your reclamation thing that you talked about. That sounded very interesting. But you said all these things can only be done when the sector is formalized. But I asked the question this way, but why should they wait for the government to tell them to do these things? I mean, can't we also have a different body or some NGOs helping small scale even before the formalization? What are they waiting for? Or let me ask the question this way: the small scale miners, are they aware of some of these measures? I guess so, but they are not doing it. So why are they not doing it?
Evans, I know there are so many consultancy services for the small scale mining sector. Okay, I have colleagues who had reclaimed sites that have been used for small scale mining. The site had been reclaimed, and now when you go there, you might not even see that place was once used for small scale mining. Okay, so but then I must emphasize here that the small scale miners don't care about environmental degradation. They'll go every extent. They say it is better to look for money than to die out of hunger. Okay. For them, to every extent, they'll go to extract the gold and to get them out of poverty. That's what they're looking for. That's why they can go and sweep the road. You know, when the government put in place this military task force, you know what was happening? They moved from working in the daytime to the nighttime in order to evade the security task force in the daytime. Okay, so I have a friend who wrote a paper about moving from diurnal to nocturnal. Okay, all because now they move from being active in the daytime to being active in the night. Yeah. And the other methods they also used to evade the security, but I don't want to talk about them. Absolutely. Okay, so this is the extent they can go. Okay. So you put in place measures, and in a very formalized way, where systems are working, the small scale miners will not talk about them, because systems work in places, and if you can cause the system political will that the right thing will be done. For several years, we have been advocating small-scale mining formalization. If we could get one government that comes and say, hey, we're going to act on research findings, okay, we're going to act on this, we're going to upscale these people, because look, the small-scale mining.
Thank you very much. I guess you have said it all, and thank you very much, Mr. Albert Kobina-Mensah. If you allow this man, he could go on and on if it's about mining. So let me come to you, Dr. Tuoku. Don't worry, we have about 8 to 10 minutes more, which is all yours. I might read a few comments though. And so the same question, kind of, what socio-environmental measures could then be put in place? But we want you to focus now on the project's affected people, the community itself. But you could also have a bite on the actions of the government and also for the small-scale miners as well. What do you think the community could also do to ensure that indeed small-scale mining remains sustainable?
I will explain that in tandem. So talking about formalization, I mean, we've all been talking about formalization, but what do we mean by formalization? By formalization, it means by giving mineral rights to these miners, by telling them that this land, this parcel of land is yours, or you have the legal, you are authorized, you have the legal right to mine on this particular parcel of land. That is what it means by formalization. And once you are able to do that, it means that you demarcate portions of the land to miners. And once they have demarcations, it means they wouldn't go beyond those demarcations to mine. That way you're able to control them. So that is actually one way of, dealing with the environmental problems associated with small-scale mining. once each miner has a demarcated area to mine in, it means that, you'll be able to control their activities. So that's what it means by formalization. We've been talking about decentralization. Just to support what Albert earlier on said, talking about devolution and all of that. Professor Achu actually said Ghana's decentralization is a centralized decentralization. What it means is that, we talk about decentralization. On paper, yes, decentralization, but everything still comes from the center or the central government. Everything is done in Accra, to achieve your objectives of almost everything. You have to still do it. You have to still go to Accra. And so that's why he said Ghana's decentralization is a centralized decentralization. And one thing worth mentioning is that I did a recent study on the challenges and opportunities of environmental policy implementation. And the study concluded that the problem really about the mining sector in Ghana is not the lack of policies, but it is the inability or lack of capacity to implement the existing policies. And this is largely due to stakeholder dissonance in the implementation of the policies. What it means is that we don't usually engage all the stakeholders. We often do a top-up. We often employ the top-up approach in implementing our policies. And that is one of the reasons why policy implementation has failed in Ghana. And so that's why I believe in the stakeholder engagement. So it is important to involve all stakeholders, miners, community members, government officials, local government authorities, chiefs, among others. You have to involve all of them. And one thing is that we don't usually involve women and children in all these theoretical debate and issues and arguments. But it is important to engage all of them because women also play a very important role in the affairs at the community level. So that's why it is important to engage them. So if we engage all these people, they will claim ownership of the policies and they will ensure that the policies are effectively implemented. Another point worth mentioning is that we have to support small-scale mining, and to support them, we can actually give them credits. Why don't we, tax the government banks? Let's say Ghana Commercial Bank, National Investment Bank, Agricultural Development Bank. We tax them and ask them to give credit to small-scale miners, those who have properly registered and who are interested in small-scale mining. Government can give, the banks can actually give them credit to buy, equipment, to buy PPEs, to buy, safety equipment and all of that, and then to do proper mining, responsible mining. And then after mining, then whatever the gold they extract and diamond and whatever they get from the ground, they sell that solely to those banks. The banks that give them the credit, they'll go back to the banks and say, okay, yes, the money you've given us to mine, these are the proceeds, and we are coming to sell those proceeds to you. So that way, once you support them and you have already a market for their product. You can easily, that way you are able to regulate them, you're able to give them ready market, and they will always come to you with their product. That is another effective way of formalizing the artisanal small-scale mining sector. Another point worth mentioning is that, I think I made that point earlier, by giving them some of the concessions of the large-scale miners, to mine on, because not all the concessions are being used by the large-scale mining operators to mine. So they can actually demarcate portions of large-scale mines to these small-scale miners, so that they will have access to those lands to mine on. And another thing is that even the large-scale mines, the mining sites or concessions can actually be given to farmers, people who are interested in farming, to farm on. Not everyone wants to go into small-scale mining. Some people actually want to farm, but they don't have the land to farm on. That's why they are compelled to engage in illegal mining activities. But if you demarcate portions of large-scale mining sites to people who are interested in farming, they can actually farm on those lands. In that way, they won't be engaged in dangerous activities that have to do with digging for survival. And so for me, I think that, I mean, my colleagues have exhausted some of the issues. I think that, and I think that these are some of the measures we can put in place to support small-scale mining, because small-scale mining is a very important sector, and it's actually a sector that can create wealth for Ghanaians. It's a sector that can create employment for Ghanaians. It's a sector that can give revenue to governments. And I think that they should be supported. The activity should not be criminalized or demonized. And one other thing is that, you know, the media and most Ghanaians do not understand the intricacies and the dynamics involved in small-scale mining. And so whenever issues are reported, their issues are reported. So for instance, you know, CDFM, I know CDFM started this debate about the environmental degradation within the small-scale mining sector. And that led to the ban on small-scale mining in 2017. You know, so we tend to attach emotions to some of these issues. I think that the government and civil society organizations should better explain the importance of small-scale mining to Ghanaians, so that we don't attach emotions to their activities, because the sector can create wealth and support the economy. And
thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Tuoku. That sounded like your concluding remark. So we would have to end the program here, but I will take your concluding remarks. Just one or two comments here from Aminus Havamiku says, Dr. Mensah is very passionate about Ghana, and this has influenced his submissions greatly. He goes on to say that small legal mining needs to be well regulated so that it can generate revenue for the country. They need to be empowered instead of criminalizing their operations. So gentlemen, what's your concluding remark? I'd like to start with you, Dr. Reku, and I know you wanted to say something in respect to Francis' point on credit, but give us your concluding remark as far as this issue is concerned. Please do so briefly.
All right, Evans, thank you so much. I think I like Francis' point on credit. I mean, providing credit to small-scale miners. I mean, that would be a very good way to also regulate the activities. And I want to talk a little bit on that with respect to using that as an opportunity to regulate the activities. You know, I always believe that we can always talk about, oh, let them do environmental reclamation, let them do everything right. But usually you have to create the incentive before some of these things can be done. So I always focus on having incentive in any policy that you make. And having credit for these small-scale mining operators could actually be a means to regulate. So it could become one of the conditions to accessing some of these facilities. Okay, when small-scale miners believe that whatever clean job they do can result in them having some credit, it's likely that many of them will go into engaging in cleaning up activities. My only issue with that is that I don't want the banks to be the sole buyers. Because I gave you credit, you have to sell it to me. That way, it could also affect pricing. I don't want the bank to have some kind of supreme power over these actors, so that they can even fix prices at low cost, so that they will not. They will not at the end of the day result in benefiting the small-scale miners whom they were sought to
Thank
help.
you.
So that could be a way to look at it. That's another perspective.
Thank you very much. And your concluding remark in just a sentence, please.
Yeah. So concluding remark, I'll say that small-scale mining has a potential to alleviate a lot of people in Ghana from poverty, especially in mining communities. I mean, we have seen that apart from providing job to Galamsey actors, we have seen that they also provide some kind of employment to non-mining actors, okay, such as traders,
All right. Today, thank you. So indeed, small-scale mining can be a tool for poverty alleviation in the mining communities. Thank you very much, Dr. Rekon. Dr. Tuoku, your concluding remark.
My concluding remark is that, yes, indeed, small-scale mining sector has the potential to improve the economy, to create wealth for the country, and to alleviate poverty in many mining communities who see illegal mining or galamsey as the soul and breath, of their lives. So if you take it away from them, you are taking their lives.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And then to you, A.K. Mensah.
Evans, thank you so much. Today is today. And there are so many things we want to say, but yeah, all is good. So what I wanted to also add is that there should be the political will. And one of the major things we can also do for the small scale mining sector is that value addition. Okay, that value addition by moving a lot of people from the production into other value chain into the other sectors along the value chain. Okay, that is what I recommend the setting up of, and I know it's not new because papers have talked about them, the setting up of central processing plants for ASM, for small scale miners, to be able to refine their gold, okay, and add value to their gold.
Thank you very much. So your concluding remark is well said, that we should be able to add value to our gold. Viewers, thank you very much. This has been CEBSAR Talk, and I would also end with a comment from Aka Michael. He says that small-scale mining has been in existence for quite a long time, and in those days where small-scale mining activities go on without disturbing our natural environment and water bodies, governments should provide an institution where those miners can be trained and good supervision being enacted on their operations. So like you've all said, I also think that the activities of small-scale mining should not be criminalized. It's a very good area that various governments could look at to help reduce poverty in mining communities. Thank you very much, Dr. Francis Xavier Tuoku. Thank you very much, Mr. Albert Kobna-Mensah, and thank you very much, Dr. Ishmael Rekun, for your time. Thank you. I am Evans Apiakisi, the host of CEBSAR Talk. See you another time.